What happens when a self-made CEO decides to go undercover in his own buffet chain and hears his staff laughing about lying to health inspectors? Graham Porter hadn't stepped foot in one of his restaurants without a suit on in over 5 years. 11 buffet locations, hundreds of employees, and a corporate team to manage it all. He built it from scratch. But lately, something was off. Online reviews for the Westland location, the third store he'd ever opened, were slipping. Cold food, dirty floors, rude staff. Yet every time he asked his district manager, he got the same line: "We're short-staffed, but it's under control." Graham wasn't buying it anymore. He decided to go in as Ray, a new hire training for kitchen support. He'd wear gray contacts, grow in a messy beard, and dyed his hair darker. The chain had grown so fast in the past 3 years. Most of the newer hires and shift managers had never met him. He made sure of it. Corporate stayed invisible unless there was a grand opening. He showed up at 9:30 a.m. Sharp, backpack slung over his shoulder, and a fake resume that said he'd worked at a small diner downstate. The manager on duty, a tired woman named Lena, barely looked at him. "Ray, right? You're late," she said. "I'm actually early," Graham replied, pointing at the clock. She waved him off. "Clock in, grab an apron. You're on refill duty, hot trays and salad bar. If something looks low, top it off. Don't bother me unless it's on fire." It was a Tuesday, and the early lunch crowd trickled in by 11. Graham moved trays around, replaced the mac and cheese, refilled the lettuce bin. He kept his head down but took in every detail. The floors were sticky. 2 line cooks argued over whose turn it was to clean the fryer. A server named Tasha dropped a plate, then rolled her eyes when a customer asked for help. No one smiled. No one looked like they wanted to be there, but there were bright spots. A teenage busboy named Diego cleaned quickly and quietly, nodding to every guest. Another staff member, a cook named Maurice, kept the grill spotless and worked fast even when the others slacked. Around noon, with the dining room half full and the buffet nearly empty, Graham grabbed a tray of baked chicken from the back and wheeled it out himself. He passed by the drink station where 2 workers leaned against the soda machine. One of them tall, early 20s, name tag said. Kyle snorted. "Man, remember when the inspector came through last month? We hadn't cleaned the ice bin in weeks." The other, a woman named Bree, laughed loud. "Yeah, and you fed him that line about deep sanitation rotation day? He actually bought it." Kyle grinned. "I told you, you just gotta sound confident." Graham froze mid-step, the tray of steaming chicken in his hands. Bree kept going. "And we tossed that expired ranch in the trash right before he walked into the fridge. That was close. Dumbass never checks the dates anyway," Kyle said. Graham set the tray down and turned back, pretending to adjust the utensil holder. He could feel the heat rising in his chest. This wasn't just laziness. This was dangerous. Fraud, even. He took a breath, looked at them again. They weren't even whispering. It was just a joke to them. He walked back to the kitchen, jaw tight. He had a choice to make. Blow his cover now or dig deeper. In the back, Maurice raised an eyebrow. "You good?" "Yeah," Graham said. "Just feeling the heat back there." "Welcome to buffet life," Maurice muttered, flipping burgers. Over the next hour, Graham kept working, watching. He noticed Kyle disappear for long stretches and Bree barely helping out. Meanwhile, Diego wiped down tables twice as fast as the others, and even helped an elderly woman carry her tray to the table when no one else noticed. By the end of the shift, Graham's feet ached, his shirt clung to his back, and his mind was racing. He needed to see the evening crew. He needed to know if this was an isolated problem or a pattern. But one thing was already clear. Someone was going to answer for what he heard. By 3 o'clock, most of the lunch crowd had cleared out, and Graham leaned on the prep counter in the back, wiping sweat from his brow with a paper towel. His shirt clung to his back, and his legs ached from standing. Lena had disappeared into the office, leaving the floor to Kyle and Bree, who were now restocking the dessert bar, more focused on chatting than working. Maurice approached the sink, rinsing off a grill spatula, and glanced at Graham. "You're sticking around for the PM shift?" "Lena asked me to shadow the evening crew," Graham answered. "Said they're short." Maurice nodded once. "You'll see a different kind of chaos after 5. Then he walked off, no further comment. By 4, a new wave of staff began trickling in: a cashier named Rena, an older dishwasher called Walt, and 2 servers, one of whom was instantly noticeable. The girl couldn't have been more than 19, with short hair dyed a deep red. She moved quickly, tying her apron as she walked, and within minutes had already cleared 3 tables without being asked. No greetings, no team huddle, just people clocking in and diving into their own corners. Graham found himself back on salad rotation, this time across from the fryer station, where a lanky guy named Dre was dropping chicken tenders. Dre didn't look up much, but he moved with efficiency gloves on, timers set, no wasted motion. At precisely 5:15, the dinner crowd began to pour in: families, tired couples, a few older regulars who moved slowly toward the booths. Graham restocked the potato wedges while scanning the dining room. Kyle was still there, now lounging near the drink station, his apron untied and hanging off one shoulder. Bree had vanished. Graham hadn't seen her since she'd clocked back in from break. A young father waved for help at the carving station, but no one moved. Graham stepped up. "Need something?" The man looked relieved. "Yeah. Just wondering if you still have roast beef out?" Graham glanced at the tray empty. He turned toward the kitchen. "Hey, anyone got eyes on roast?" Lena, who'd reappeared at some point, leaned out of the office doorway, a phone in her hand. "Tell them we're out. Truck didn't bring any." The man frowned. "You're out of roast beef? It's on the sign." "I can check the walk-in," Graham offered. Lena's tone cut in, flat and dismissive. "Don't bother. They'll eat what's there." Graham held the man's gaze. "I'll see what I can do." He walked into the cooler, where boxes were stacked haphazardly, some marked with faded labels. No roast, but what stood out more was the smell of faint sourness near the back corner. He followed it and found an open box of thawing shrimp, half covered and leaking into the shelf below. The date sticker had peeled halfway off, unreadable. He didn't touch it, just stepped back, closed the cooler, and made a note in his mind. Food safety was more than an afterthought here, it was ignored. Back on the line, Dre leaned in. "You find it?" "Nope," Graham replied. Dre kept working, but said quietly, "We had roast this morning. Saw it myself." Graham glanced at him. "Then where is it?" Dre shrugged, eyes still on the fryer. "Ask the boss. I just cook." Later, while clearing empty pans, Graham caught a moment with the red-haired server. She had just finished helping an elderly woman refill her iced tea. "That was kind," Graham said. "You always this helpful?" She tucked her pen behind her ear. "I try. Some of these folks come in regular. I know which ones can't carry their own trays." "What's your name?" "Lexi." Graham nodded. "First week." She laughed. "3rd month. No one remembers unless I screw up." "Anyone training you?" Lexi looked toward the office. "Not really. You learn fast or get blamed." A group of teens near the corner booth began knocking over cups, laughing. Kyle walked right past them without a glance. Lexi sighed and headed over, already grabbing napkins. Graham followed. "Everything all right here?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. One of the teens rolled his eyes. "Yeah, we're good." Lexi started helping them clean up. "Let's get this mess taken care of before someone slips." As they turned away, Kyle muttered under his breath, just loud enough. Look at her playing waitress of the year. Lexi didn't respond. She just kept wiping. Graham stepped closer to Kyle. You got something to say? Kyle looked at him sideways. Relax, new guy. Just jokes. You always joke by putting down people doing your job? Kyle scoffed. She ain't even supposed to be on drinks. She just gets in everyone's way trying to impress customers. It's fake. Graham held his stare. You think helping someone is fake? Kyle didn't answer. He turned and walked away. By 7, the dining room was full, and the kitchen was behind on nearly everything. Rena had burned her hand on the soup warmer and was working with one glove, visibly wincing. Walt was stacking dirty dishes faster than the machine could handle, and the sink was backed up. Graham tried to help, but Lena stopped him. Go refill the hot bar. I've got Walt. He hesitated. The bar's restocked. The sink's the real problem. I said I've got it, she snapped. Walt, hunched over, gave Graham a brief glance. His shirt was soaked through. You want me to take over for a few? Graham asked him directly. Walt shook his head. Not unless you know how to fix a broken sprayer. Been fighting it for a week. Maintenance not coming? No one's called them. Graham looked toward Lena's office. Lights off again. Door closed. He found Lexi 10 minutes later, restocking rolls. You ever see Lena actually manage? He asked. Lexi sighed. She shows up. That's about it. You ever try reporting anything? She looked at him carefully. To who? Kyle's her cousin. Bree's her best friend. Rest of us are just temps to her. Not everyone here is a temp. She acts like we are. At 8:30, a woman in her 60s slipped near the drink station. Graham rushed over, helped her up, and asked if she was okay. She said yes, but her knee was clearly strained. The floor had been left wet after someone refilled the ice bin. Kyle stood 10 feet away, arms crossed. You didn't see the spill? Graham asked him. I'm off drinks now. That's Bree's zone. Where is she? Kyle shrugged. Graham turned to Lena, who had just emerged again. We had a customer fall. She blinked. They sign a waiver at the door. Graham stared at her. That's not how liability works. She waved it off. You want to mop. Otherwise, stop bothering me. That was it. He walked to the back, pulled off his apron, and headed for the manager's office. He cracked the door open and stepped inside. Lena was halfway through texting on her phone, feet kicked up on the desk. Hey, she said without looking up. You're not scheduled to close. I know, Graham said. Then he reached into his back pocket and pulled out the laminated card. He kept with him one that hadn't seen daylight in months. He placed it on the desk. Lena glanced at it, then froze. Graham locked eyes with her. I'm Graham Porter. I own this chain, and I just spent 10 hours watching you run this place into the ground. Her mouth opened. No words came out. Get Kyle and Bree in here. Now. She stood slowly, phone forgotten. He didn't wait for her. He walked back into the dining area and called out, Kyle, Bree manager's office. Now. Kyle swaggered over, clearly amused. What's up, apron guy? Graham didn't answer. Bree followed a moment later, looking bored. Inside the office, Lena stood off to the side. Graham shut the door behind them. He addressed Kyle first. You lied to a health inspector. Kyle's grin vanished. You joked about it in front of staff. You ignored customers. You laughed when someone fell. Kyle looked to Lena. Is this a joke? Graham's voice was level. No, you're fired. Effective immediately. Bree stepped forward. Hold on. We didn't do anything illegal. You covered up health code violations. You vanished during your shift. You're done. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Graham turned to Lena. You let this happen. You ignored safety issues. You left a worker with a broken sprayer for a week. You silenced complaints. Her face went pale. You're being removed from your role effective tonight. HR will follow up tomorrow. I've been here 6 years. And you've forgotten what leadership means. He turned and opened the door. Collect your things. As they left, stunned silent, Graham stepped outside the office and looked toward Lexi, still bussing tables. Can I borrow you a minute? She nodded, looking confused, and followed him into the office. You've been doing more than your share, he said. You treat people right. I noticed. She shifted, unsure. Thanks. You're not a temp anymore. Effective tomorrow, I want you lead server. You'll get training, better hours, and a raise. If you're interested. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Dead serious. She nodded slowly. Then yeah, I'm in. He smiled. Good. Let's fix this place. By the time Graham left the Westland location that night, the kitchen was winding down and the dining room sat half empty. The ambient clatter dulled to a low hum. He didn't say goodbye to anyone. He just walked out through the back, still in uniform, the name Ray stitched across his chest. The next morning, he arrived in his own clothes. Black button-down, jeans, no pretense. He stepped through the front doors just before opening and was met by Rena, who nearly dropped her register drawer when she saw him. Wait! Her eyes widened. You're him. I'm Graham, he said calmly. Call in Lexi and Maurice. I need them both in the office. She nodded and disappeared into the back. He stepped into the manager's office. It still smelled faintly of that artificial vanilla air freshener Lena had plugged in. He unplugged it and tossed it in the trash. The desk was cluttered. He stood instead of sitting. Maurice arrived first, arms folded, posture guarded. Lexi came in seconds later, still tying her apron. I wanted to talk before we opened, Graham said. No corporate nonsense. Just straight. Maurice gave a small nod. Lexi kept her eyes on him, cautious but curious. You've both been holding this place together in ways you shouldn't have had to. That ends now. Maurice raised an eyebrow. How exactly? I've already contacted HR. Lena's removal is permanent. Kyle and Bree are out. There won't be any second chances for what I saw. Lexi blinked. That actually happened? I don't do warnings when people jeopardize safety or morale, Graham said. We've got a lot to fix. And I won't pretend this is some overnight turnaround. Morris's arms relaxed. What about the rest of the team? I'm bringing in interim support from one of our top-performing stores, a guy named Malik. He'll manage operations short-term while I stay involved. Lexi, your lead server starting today as long as you still want it. I do, she said quietly. Good. Maurice, I want you off grill for the next couple days. I need your help auditing the kitchen systems. You know what's wrong better than anyone. I can do that, he said, voice steady. Then let's get to work. By late morning, Malik arrived. Mid-30s, calm energy, clipboard in hand. He didn't waste time. Within the first hour, he was walking through every station, questioning prep procedures, checking freezer temps, and noting equipment that needed replacement. He wasn't loud, but his presence shifted the tone of the whole building. Graham stayed off the floor that day. He camped in the corner booth near the beverage station with a laptop, watching how the team adjusted. Malik handled things with quiet authority, and people responded. Lexi started taking initiative immediately. She assigned sections, rotated breaks properly, and backed up Walt at the dish pit when it got busy. Maurice worked methodically through the kitchen, identifying expired inventory and labeling everything properly. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. By mid-shift, Graham noticed a young woman he hadn't seen before. She was moving quickly between tables, clearing dishes, offering refills without being asked. Her name tag read Lonnie. He caught her between tables. "Hey," he said. "You knew." She nodded. "Started last week." "You were trained by Lexi?" "Not really. I just copied her. No one really trained me." Graham nodded. "You doing all right so far?" She hesitated. "Better today. Yesterday was messy. If anyone gives you a hard time, come straight to me or Malik." Lonnie looked surprised. "You're the owner, right?" "That's right." She smiled, a little awkward but genuine. "Thanks. I'll keep that in mind." Later that afternoon, Graham stepped into the kitchen, where Maurice was reviewing the walk-in inventory with Malik. "You've got duplicate orders of bulk cheese and none of the higher margin proteins," Maurice said, pointing at the clipboard. "That's why they kept running out of roast." Malik nodded. "Vendor invoices confirm it. Someone was reordering based on last month's template without checking usage. No one was adjusting for waste or shrinkage," Maurice added. "I threw out 2 trays of spoiled shrimp this morning." Graham glanced at Malik. "Is this localized or systemic?" Malik handed him the clipboard. "I checked the past 3 months. Looks like Westland stopped using the corporate inventory app entirely. They've been submitting fake reports and handwritten logs." "Who approved them?" "Lena. All signed by her." Graham exhaled slowly. "We'll need to conduct a full audit. And we should probably have legal take a look." "Already sent the files to compliance." Graham turned to Maurice. "You still want to stay on here?" Maurice looked him straight in the eye. "I could have left months ago. I want this place to work. But I'm not babysitting liars." "You won't have to." Graham left them to it and went back to the dining room. It was steady now, not perfect, but the stress that had hung in the air the day before had started to lift. Staff moved with more purpose. Tables were cleaned quicker. Even the customers seemed to sense the difference. He spotted Walt sitting on a milk crate near the back exit, sipping water. His shirt was still damp, but he looked less strained. Graham walked up. "You all right?" Walt looked up. "Better than yesterday. Malik told me about the busted sprayer. We've got a replacement arriving tomorrow." "Appreciate that. You've been holding this place together longer than anyone realized." Walt shrugged. "I just keep my head down." "You ever think about mentoring new hires? Teaching them how to handle the dish pit properly?" Walt raised an eyebrow. "Never thought anyone cared enough to ask." "I care." He nodded once. "Then yeah, I could do that." Graham looked toward the dining room, where Lexi was training Lonnie on table rotation. The two of them worked in tandem, moving fast but not rushed. He stepped over to them. "You're doing well," he told Lexi. "Trying to keep the momentum. You're building something better than momentum. You're setting a standard." Lexi glanced toward the beverage station. "I'm not letting things slide anymore." "Don't," Graham said. "I'll back you." Then he turned to Lonnie. "You said yesterday was messy. What made today better?" She looked at Lexi, then back at him. "People stopped stepping on each other. Felt like we were actually a team. That's what we want." As the last rush of the evening started to pick up, Graham walked back into the kitchen. Maurice had lined up all the outdated logs on the prep table, tagging each with a sticky note for audit. Malik was on the phone with corporate logistics, arranging for an emergency protein shipment. None of it was glamorous. None of it would fix everything overnight. But it was real work, done by people who still cared. Graham stood there for a moment, watching it all. He hadn't just uncovered a broken system. He'd uncovered the people willing to fix it. And he wasn't walking away again. The following week at the Westland Buffet was anything but smooth, but for the first time in months, the dysfunction was being addressed, not ignored. No one was pretending anymore. The shortcuts, the favoritism, the unchecked laziness, it had all been dragged into the light. And now the hard part had begun. Graham returned every day, not to oversee but to observe, to support, and to ensure no one slipped back into old habits. He rotated between stations, not in disguise this time, but with a clipboard and quiet presence that kept people sharp. He didn't bark orders. He asked questions and listened. On Wednesday morning, he met with Malik and Maurice in the back storage room where the dry goods were being reorganized. The walls were lined with open boxes, most half-labeled, some with products they hadn't used in over a year. Maurice gestured to a stack of dented cans. These were rotated into prep stock. No records. Probably been here since before Christmas. Malik rubbed the back of his neck. We pulled over 36 expired items from the walk-in this week. No one was tracking anything. It wasn't just laziness, it was complete breakdown. Graham nodded. We're not patching holes anymore. I want the foundation redone. New inventory system. Barcode everything. No more handwritten logs. I can train Diego and Rena on the new system once we finalize it, Maurice said. They're sharp. They'll catch on fast. Good, Graham said. Let's make sure no one's stuck learning alone again. Later that afternoon, Graham found Lexi near the dish pit, coaching Lonnie on how to stack trays without cracking the edges. Walt was nearby, replacing the busted hose with the new sprayer they'd installed that morning. Lexi, Graham said, walking up, I wanted to talk about next steps for the front of house. She stepped away from Lonnie. Sure, you've been taking initiative well. But I want you to focus less on picking up the slack and more on building the team up. What do you mean? You don't need to do everything. You need to make sure everyone knows how to do it right. That's leadership. She considered that for a moment. Some of them are still hesitant. After what this place was like before. It's going to take time. Then give them a reason to believe it's changed. It starts with you. She gave a small nod. All right, I'll draw up a shift plan. Assign responsibilities by strength. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. The next day, Graham scheduled a full staff meeting before opening. Not a top-down presentation, just a circle of chairs in the empty dining room, coffee brewed fresh, and no clocks ticking. He waited until every scheduled employee had arrived. Some looked uneasy, others just tired. No one had seen this kind of gathering before. He stood in the center. I'm not here to lecture, he started. I'm here to say two things. First, thank you. If you showed up today, you're part of the solution. Second, this store has been broken. And not because of you, because of what was allowed to grow here. That's changing. He gave them a moment. You'll get proper training. You'll have your concerns heard. But in return, I expect accountability. No more hiding behind excuses. If you see something wrong, you speak up. If you need support, you ask. No more silence. One of the newer hires, a quiet guy named Jordan, raised a hand. What happens if someone's not pulling their weight? I've got no problem working, but I'm not running 3 stations again like I did last weekend. You won't, Graham said. Everyone pulls their weight or they're gone. Period. Jordan looked relieved. A few others nodded. Rena leaned forward in her seat. What if customers complain about stuff we can't control? Like if we're short on something? Be honest, Graham replied. Don't make excuses. Let them know we're improving systems and that we care. People don't expect perfection, they expect effort. After the meeting, Diego approached him privately. Can I ask something? Of course. Is this permanent? Or just while you're here? Graham looked him in the eye. This isn't a visit. I'm staying involved. And Malik is staying on until this store runs like it should without needing anyone to babysit it. Diego nodded slowly. All right, then I'll keep showing up early. By Friday, the atmosphere had shifted. Not dramatically, but tangibly. Lexi had introduced a rotating mentorship system. Each new hire was paired with someone experienced, not necessarily the most senior, but the most consistent. Lonnie was shadowing Rena on register rotation now, and Walt had taken Jordan under his wing to manage the dish flow during peak hours. Maurice had reorganized the entire kitchen labeling, maps, and prep charts. He wasn't loud about it, but people noticed. Cooking stations ran smoother. Food didn't sit out too long. The line moved faster. Graham stayed close enough to see the cracks, but far enough not to hover. He watched as Malik coached Lexi and Rena through a brief confrontation between two servers about overlapping tables. Lexi handled it calmly, directly. No one raised their voice. No one walked off. That night, as the last guests left and the team began cleaning, Graham stepped into the kitchen one final time. Maurice was scrubbing down the prep table, sleeves rolled up. "You've logged more hours than I asked for this week," Graham said. "I wanted to see it through," Maurice replied. "Didn't feel right stepping out halfway." "You've earned more than a thank you." Maurice raised an eyebrow. "What's that mean?" "It means I want you on the regional training team. You'll visit other stores, fix systems, mentor kitchen staff. Better pay. More autonomy." Maurice leaned back, arms crossed. "You trust me with that? I've watched how you work. That trust's already earned." He gave a short nod. "Then yeah, I'm in." Later, Graham found Lexi finishing paperwork near the office. She looked up as he approached. "You didn't have to stay this late," he said. "I wanted to get ahead on next week's floor schedule." "You're already thinking ahead?" "I'm not letting things slip. I've seen how fast they can fall apart." He folded his arms. "You've grown fast. I didn't have a choice. You made the right ones. And I want to offer you something." She tilted her head, curious. "Assistant GM. You'll work under Malik for now. Full training. Full benefits. No more hourly." Her eyes widened. "Why me?" "Because you don't just do the work, you make others better. That's what leadership is." She hesitated only a heartbeat. "Then yes, I'll do it." "Good," he said. "Let's build something that lasts." As Graham stepped outside into the night air, the lights from the dining room still glowed behind him. The Westland location wasn't perfect, but it was alive again. Not because of sweeping policies or flashy announcements, but because people had been reminded that their work mattered, and that someone was finally watching for the right reasons. He had walked into his own store as a stranger. He was leaving it finally as an owner again.